That's very loud. All right, so welcome everybody. We call the meeting to order. It is Tuesday, November 22nd. And so to kick off the meeting, if we can do a roll call attendance. Linda, do you want to
Sure.
do that?
Chair Seth Roy.
I'm here.
Michael Aronson here. Nina Aaron is absent. Robert Pfeffer is absent. Ulysses Castillo.
Here.
Eric Calvert.
Here.
Isabel Wen here. Brenda Burback is absent, and Carlo Elliott is absent.
So we have 5 members present. So we have a quorum plus 1. Okay, so the first item on the agenda will be the approval of the minutes from October 25th. Has everybody here had a chance to review the minutes? Right? Any questions? Okay, so we will just as a reminder to myself and to everybody, we don't have any microphones in here right now, and the only microphone is up above the TV. So to be heard, let's just speak loudly and in that direction. So I'll do my best. I've had a long day of talking. So, all right. So do we have a motion then to approve the minutes?
Michael Aronson, motion to approve the minutes from the September 27th, 2022 meeting.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Eric Talbot, I second the motion.
All right. Any objections? No objections. The motion passes. And just to reiterate, we had a motion from Michael Aronson and a second from Eric Talbot. I can ask to repeat those for the record because it's hard to hear.
And I'm trying to write them down.
Okay,
well.
very good. Now, I usually, if you miss anything, I try to keep those in my notes as well as we go. So, okay, so the first item on the agenda tonight under new business is Planning Board 07-19, 81-89 South Highland Avenue, Birchbrook. This is an extension. So, yeah, we're looking right now in the attendees list to see if we can bring in the applicant, but it's a second extension of the final subdivision entry frame approvals. I believe this is the last extension they can get on this.
Know that when we go to move them, let them in. If there's like a
lag.
20-second lag where they're like in Never Never Land and they can't hear you. And
okay. Looks like we got somebody here.
Yes.
So just for the record, so this is the second extension. Is there what's the limit on extensions on this on the subdivision? Okay. So we'll double check.
But I have been in touch with counsel for the applicant, and I'll let them sort of state where they are in this process.
Okay. And it looks like the first extension that was granted in April of this year was a 90-day extension. So
do 90.
This will be a 90. Okay, very good. So so we have who do we have here? Is this Alex Glad? Alex
Yes.
Glad?
Yes, hi.
Hey, hi.
Alex Glad from Covington.
Great. Yeah, go ahead. Can you just let us know kind of give us an update with where you guys are in your building permit application process, what the project status is, and what your extension request is?
Yes, sure. So we're seeking an additional 90-day extension. The purpose of that is because one of the conditions required that we get a bond for some of the water and sewer work, and we are close to having the bond issued. We're still just working out a couple items with the surety company that they wanted as proof as far as financials go. And we hope to have that in about the next month or so. We hope that this will be the last extension, and that's what we're planning on. But that's really the only thing is just that bond that is outstanding.
Okay. Are there any other extensions? Are there any zoning extensions or other boards that need to weigh in on this?
No, it's the subdivision and the tree permit.
Okay, so we're not waiting on any other boards for anything on this. Okay. Board members, any questions for the applicant? Oh, I'm looking around. Everyone's shaking their heads no. All right. So before we move any further, I think we should open this up to the public. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing on this extension request?
Eric Talbot, I make a motion to open to the public hearing.
And second.
Isabel Wen, I second that motion.
All right. Any objections? No objections. The motion passes. We're in a public hearing. If there's anybody either on Zoom or in, well, let me start off. Is there anybody in the room who's here to speak on this application? The only person is not. Is there anybody on Zoom? You can use the hand raise function. Just give you a moment to do that in case you'd like to speak. And do not see any hands going up. All right, so it doesn't look like, and I'm assuming nothing was emailed into the village or any other correspondence from the public. Okay. So with that, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Michael Aronson, motion to close the public hearing.
And second?
Isabel Wynn, I second that motion.
Okay. Any objections? No objections, the motion carries. The public hearing is closed. Just to reiterate, we had Eric motioning to open the hearing and Isabel motioning to seconding that motion. And then on the second, we had Michael motioning to close the hearing and also Isabel seconding. So at this point, if there are any other comments from the board, otherwise we have a motion to approve the extension, the 90-day extension as requested.
And the, I think it was.
The tree.
And the tree, right.
And
So
the tree permit.
this is for both the.
I think it was
subdivision
120
and
on the tree permit, 120 days was the request. Alec, do you remember, you have your letter there?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. And yes, that's correct. The 120-day extension of the tree.
And so the subdivision, your code only allows you to give 90.
Okay.
But on the tree permit, you can give 120.
Do we have a motion on that to approve the extensions request as just described?
Eric Talbot, I make a motion to approve the extension on the subdivision. Excuse me. Request extend the extension on the subdivision request as well as the tree permit. Pardon my.
Second.
Michael Aronson, second.
All right. So we had a motion from Eric Talbot and a second from Michael Aronson. Can we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Ulysses Castillo.
Aye.
Eric Talbot.
Aye.
Isabel Wynn.
Aye.
Michael Aronson.
Aye.
Seth Roy.
Aye. Very good. Thank you. The motion carries 5-0. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Glad.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Okay. We're going to move on now to continuing business.
Chris Hahn.
So I will give, I'll actually give the folks in the room right now a moment
Jim
to
Wendling.
bring the applicant in, and then I'll introduce the item.
Maxwell Howe. And Rich. Yeah. Okay, so we have Chris Hahn, Jim Wendling, Maxwell Powell, and Rich Williams. Jim, is that your whole team tonight?
It is, yes, thank you.
All right, so just kind of for background right now, we'll be looking at this application. We're still waiting for the zoning board to review and opine on the various area variances and other variances. So that's still in process. So we can't move forward with this application until then, but we do want to use tonight. There have been a couple of changes that we discussed, especially in the VAR and some site plan questions. So we have an opportunity tonight just to kind of go through, get any board feedback on the application before we would expect to see them after the ZBA comes back with us. So I mean, just a couple of items that we would want to be touching on. I know the density bonus was reviewed by the village board.
Correct. They approved, the village board acted on the waterfront special permit, which now allows you to act on the density bonus.
Right. And so that, and just to be clear, so I know we as a board wrote a letter to the village board regarding that special permit. And so the criteria that we're looking at with the density bonus are the same criteria that we spoke about in our letter to the village board. Right. So we will also just kind of look in, I'll ask in a moment for Colored Sessions just to give an update of their review. We will also, I'd like to just take a moment to look at some of the architectural changes or, especially regarding the garage, We'd asked last week for some feedback and some additional information. I know there's an updated November set of renderings and architectural plans. So that's kind of on our list to go through. Anything new that you guys as the applicant want to bring to our attention or ask us about, tonight's a good opportunity to do that as well. So with that, maybe I'll pass it off to you, you guys to speak. And if you want to share your presentation or maybe we'll go that way.
Great. Thank you, Chairman. Jim Wendling speaking. I think you went over the background information that we would have done, so thank you for doing that. With that, I'll turn it over to Maxwell. We worked on as you said, the garage, since we heard your feedback at the last meeting. So with that, let's turn it over to Maxwell. We could walk through the design changes we have presented.
Good evening, everyone. As Jim mentioned, I think we're really here to kind of talk through some of the garage design changes related to the screening. I apologize for having a conflict last meeting, but I did hear from Jim and Rich the comments from the board. So I think we're all on the same page there. I think we agreed with the board's comments. Ever since from a few weeks ago when we changed the footprint of the garage to get a few more spaces in the garage. The garage kind of changed a little bit. It felt a little bit longer along the frontage along the Kill. The core used to be located over here. There was a little setback on the garage. So with the garage being made a little bit more efficient, the frontage on the Kill did seem a little bit longer, right? So we agreed that it made sense to sort of take a fresh look at the garage design and the facade design, and hopefully I can share with you where we are right now, because we think that we've landed in a good spot. So if you recall, originally the garage design, we had these vertical slats that kind of came out projecting from the garage in a vertical manner. And I think it's still a very beautiful way of screening a garage, but I think with the length of the garage being as it was or becoming, I think it feels a little bit relentless, right? And we agreed with your thoughts on that. So what we've done now is sort of taken a fresh look at it, and we're proposing to modify the garage screening design so that it sort of goes structural bay by structural bay, right? So this is on the top right corner here, you can kind of see one structural bay. What we've done is turned the screening elements horizontally, right? So you can imagine that this structural bay is now divided up into sort of like 6 mini bays that have these horizontal metal panels that could have a perforation in them, assuming we need some additional ventilation for the garage, which kind of gives the feel of sort of a veil over the garage, which we think is really, really interesting. I think the other element, when we turn the panels as opposed to doing the verticals, I think it brings a sense of scale to the garage that's maybe a little bit more pedestrian and something that just feels a little bit better when you're walking along and adjacent to the garage. So the other element that we looked at, so in addition to the sort of idea of this sort of overarching veil screening system on the garage, we've also introduced some openings that we've created to just provide some additional variety within the facade design of the elevation of the garage. And I'll show you that in a second. And then the last thing that I want to note that we added was on the Kill side. As you know, there's very limited space between the garage and the edge of the Kill, in order to fit the fire lane access. So there's really no ability to put any plantings or any trees in that zone. But we believe we can actually get some planters that are sort of attached to the bottom of the screening system that could hang down on that first floor, which I think would be really nice. Over time, this will kind of grow down and it'll provide a little bit of a green screen on that first level where people who are walking along the Kill would actually be able to sort of experience of a softer edge to the garage. So I think that you'll see it in the renderings, something that we're really, really excited about. These are sort of, we updated all the elevations. I think the image on the right here, on the bottom right here is actually a pretty good example of just another garage that we found that has sort of a similar idea. It's not quite what we're doing, but the idea is to sort of take each structural bay and have this sort of screen system in front of it. Of course, we're adding some horizontal openings in it to provide a little bit more sort of variety and nuance within the facade, but you kind of get a sense of what this could feel like. We're also proposing to maintain sort of that light colored metal panel system, right, which ties in nicely. We go back to the to that previous one right here. So it ties back to the hues and the colors and the tonality that we have on the residential building on the other side of the kill, which we think is really important. So if we look at sort of the overall elevation, so on the top is the Central Avenue elevation. So you can see it's a very sort of simple screening system. We don't actually have any of those openings that I described on the other side. It's, the garage feels a little bit shorter on the side because of the slope on Central Avenue. So we just want to kind of keep it very calm and very, very simple on this side. We did drop in all of the plantings and landscaping that Rich's plan shows, so you get a better sense of the actual landscape that we have up against the building on Central Avenue. And then on the bottom here is the view from the kill, right? So you get a sense, again, taking each of the structural bays and applying a very simple veil of a metal screen system, dotting in some of these openings in there, which I think kind of adds a sort of a level of playfulness on the garage. And then that ground floor, this little green zone here would be the planters that would be kind of growing downwards towards grade all the way along the frontage of the kill. And so that's sort of the big change that we were suggesting here. And then we updated all of the renderings, which hopefully gives you a better sense of the new design. So this is sort of that entry view again, right? So this is sort of that screening, the typical screening. This is the entry coming in off of Water Street. This is the core, right? So there's an elevator and a stair, and we thought it was important to make sure that that stayed enclosed, right? Like, we're close to the water. We really want to have a level of protection for people who are using the stairs and the elevators in the wintertime where there's inclement weather. The next view was the view from Water Street looking right up the kill. And we've actually stepped back so we can actually see it a little bit better. So this is actually sort of a new view that you haven't seen before. But here you kind of get a really good sense of sort of the scale. I think the horizontality actually plays down the height of the garage a little bit, right? So you kind of get a sense of the screening that's occurring on the second and third levels of the garage. If we zoom in a little bit, you can kind of see along the northern side of the kill, these planters that are hung from right below the screen system that will start to grow down. And I think will provide a level of softness again on that edge. And then on the left here is the stair circulation element for the garage, which we think is obviously really important to be visible. And then just further up, we've updated all of these. Again, you get the sense of the garage when you're further up, sort of midway through the block, close to the lobby. This is that sort of bridge connection, that we have sort of midway across as well. And you get a sense again of the garage design. So it really feels more, I like to describe it as a veil, right? It's not something that's trying to make the garage feel entirely enclosed, but something that's a little bit more porous as well. And then the view on Central Avenue. So here's the update. So similarly, the same sort of language that we're proposing on the other side makes its way onto this side. And we have added in the landscaping design that Rich has added in on Central Avenue, which again helps soften that edge as well. And I think that there's just one last view, which is the view on Main and Water Street that we updated, which just kind of shows the stair and elevator element sort of poking through there, which again is important, I think, from a visibility point of view if you're coming to the site and you're trying to find out where you're going to park. So those are the main changes that we made to the set, and we hope that the board sees this as hopefully an improvement to what we had previously shown for the garage design. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Maxwell. I just have a couple of immediate questions, and I'll open up to the board to speak. So I'll just kind of go in order as I was writing down. Just the vertical columns that you're proposing, you're expressing. So when I was looking at the elevations, it looked like it was just a raw concrete column, but then in the renderings, it looks like there's they're recessed, or is there any kind of cladding there? Are we going to see the concrete? How are those being addressed?
Yeah, we're proposing that the concrete actually gets painted there. So it's not this sort of raw colored concrete, but it's a little bit darker. And I think that gray ties in nicely with the building across the way. There's some grays in the building as well. Probably not easily viewed on this side. Let's go back to this, right? So there's some grays that we find on the residential building as well. So we're kind of pick up on some of those hues.
And the panels are installed kind of in front of the columns. The columns are set back and recessed.
Yeah, so the columns would be in line with the structure of the garage. So these would just be a few inches proud of that. We don't have a lot of room to work with, honestly, but this would just, the screening would be just proud of the columns.
And then the planters that you're talking about at the bottom, those would be out in front of the screening, or would those be level with screening? How deep are those that you're imagining?
The planters will be this in line with the screening up above, right? So this actually just kind of, it's, you know, between columns. So there's nothing in the way of it moving backwards in sort of backwards in plane. So this plane will be essentially in the same plane as the screen and moving back into the garage.
What's the maintenance of a planter system like that? Does that have an integral irrigation system? Is it like a, you know, kind of like a green roof where you'd use something that's drought tolerant, you know, kind of dry weather tolerant, like succulents, or how's that imagined?
Yeah, so I think we're going to have to work with our landscape architect to specify the species there. But the intent is it's like a green screen, right? So it's, you know, more like an ivy kind of product that would, you know, kind of grow downwards. So we're not anticipating it to require a lot of maintenance, but because it is located at this level and not sort of further up on the garage, we think it is actually accessible and it's something that can be maintained rather easily. You know, we're, you know, sort of giving the best bang for the buck and, you know, on that ground level.
Okay. And then while you're on that shot, I mean, materially, we've talked a lot about the screen and a little bit about the columns. I may have some other questions about the coatings that you might be proposing on the concrete. You know, like maybe like a stain versus a paint, so it doesn't look, it doesn't, you know, peel off over time, require maintenance, or look kind of, you know, have a cheap look to it if it's just a painted concrete. Not to mention its impact on the concrete itself and maintenance, but just underneath the green screen, I know there looks like you kind of have these like ashlars and like a railing. So we just talk about what that is materially. Yeah, so the base will be similar to the material that we have on the building on the other side, right? So it'll be a flat sort of stone finish on there. We do have sort of like a metal fence that's just sort of above it, just so that you don't have, you know, access of people climbing over the wall and going into the garage beyond. But I think this element here that you can kind of see horizontally will be the climbing material for the ivy that's coming down from above, right? Ultimately, that's sort of the backdrop for it. And then what you're seeing beyond is actually the wall of the garage on the other side, right? Because that's up against Central Avenue, and you know it's not open to the other side. So that's what you see in the dark gray beyond. Right, but in reality, that would probably be just a concrete wall, not a patterned wall. It'll be a concrete wall. That's correct. And then, all right, and sorry, and I just have one last question because these images are super helpful. First of all, I know I kind of ran right into questions, but you know, I do think these are helpful and a nice improvement over what we were looking at last meeting. Just finally, the garage doors, and which kind of speaks to program a little bit. Are these doors going to be closed? Are they in, you know, is this something that you're going to see or read on the facade, or are these, is it private parking? All except for the top level, right, are residential parking spots. So is this a secured garage with, you know, with a door that's going to roll up and down? And materially, what should we expect to see? What are you proposing that we see with those garage doors? Yeah, the intent is to have garage doors to close it off, to ensure that we have some security in terms of, you know, cars coming in and out. Right now, our intent is to use a metal coiling door that might have a little bit of a perforated pattern. So again, it has a little bit of transparency. It's not going to be like a completely solid door, but it'd be an overhead door that would roll up and then roll back down. Yeah, I think you did. I mean, you had some other, I don't know if it was a rendering or one of the other elevations that showed it. That was just kind of what made me think about it. And so would that be the same? Would that be an aluminum or like a powder coated steel, or and would it match the color of the other aluminum components, metal components on the facade? Yeah, so it would be a powder coated finish, and we would match the sort of the same gray that we have elsewhere on the garage. So it'll feel in keeping. It wouldn't be this sort of warm sort of wood tan color. It would be a gray color. The bronze type, is it? Yeah. And what color? I mean, like even those panels, the metal cladding panels on the stair tower, is that? I mean, you're calling it gray. Is that? I kind of almost reads like a bronze. medium or dark bronze?
Yeah, it's a gray. I mean, I think it's just I think it's a rendering. It's a warm gray. It's not a I guess it wouldn't be called a cool gray, but it's sort of a warmer gray that we're proposing there.
All right, these are helpful. I'd love to open this up to the board for questions and comments and thoughts.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of questions. I mean, I think this is a big improvement. I really do like the way the facade of the parking garage is broken up and the irregularity of the openings. And I'm just wondering, actually looking at this shot, one of the board members at the last meeting brought up some concerns about pedestrians crossing over the entryway to the garage at this point. And I can't tell from this drawing if there's actually a sidewalk that goes around the plantings that allows people to cross over the entryway. Is that, it's not entirely clear.
Yeah, I mean, I think people can cross here, right? I mean, it's not like this would garner a lot of traffic. This is a driveway that's just accessing the ground floor parking for residents, right? So, and then there's a timing issue, right? Because the door also has to go up, right? So it's not like someone's just speeding into an open garage, right? So I think, that is something we thought about in terms of being able to have that, the ability for folks to cross and get in safely.
Does the sidewalk, so the planting sort of to the left of the entryway, does the sidewalk actually extend, or do the plantings come to the curb there? It's not.
No, the sidewalk extends. You kind of see it here. So here's the sidewalk and it continues across, all the way along Water Street. So that continues on the outer, the outer edge of the, I guess, the sidewalk.
And then I know this, Seth touched a little bit on this about the maintenance of the plantings, and this isn't technically a BAR question, but who is responsible for the maintenance and operation of the garage once built?
We are, as the property manager. So WBP has our own in-house management company, which will manage the site, and we will be responsible for the management and maintenance of the landscaping.
Including the landscaping. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
I think it's a big improvement. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. I saw on the garage facade what looked like some horizontal louvers. It looked like louvers to me, but I couldn't really tell what they were.
Oh yeah, good eye.
The orange color.
Right here, right?
Yeah, those.
Yeah. So what we did here was we just clad, so behind here is it's the concrete spandrel of the garage, right? So where we're exposing it, we're going to put a painted metal corrugated panel there. So that gives us a little bit of tie back to sort of the grays that we have on the verticals, just a little bit of a finish there, right? So the idea is that this piece here is sort of the opening architecturally, right? But what we're seeing is you're going to see a little bit of that spandrel, and so we just clad that in a metal panel.
Okay.
That's all.
Other questions, reactions from the board?
I have a comment. I do think it's a good improvement, and that it really does help break up that length of garage, having made it that design change to really kind of move it around the site and give yourself some more space in the garage and change the footprint of it. I think that it fits more harmoniously on the site, and I think that it's visually more attractive, in appearance. And I think, yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great.
Hi, Maxwell. I do have two questions. So continue on with the conversation about the horizontal panels at the garage. Some of these panels are different sizes. So are they different sizes, or are they adjustable? And
They're actually, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I'm just asking, are they different sizes, or are they actually like adjustable to allow ventilation?
No, they're actually different sizes, right? They're different sizes to make it look like it's got a bit of variance on the panels, but it's basically three sizes. There's a big and a medium and then a small that we repeat throughout the the screening.
And I see that you're adding a couple of openings, just kind of break up the facade a little bit. How tall, what is the size of those openings? Because that ground floor, that sits pretty low. Can someone actually well through?
Oh, so no, you can't, because we've added a little fence here. It's a little hard to see, I apologize. These sort of horizontal lines is just like sort of basically like a guardrail, right? And that will also serve as the backdrop for the hanging plantings that will grow on it eventually. But it's not wide enough for someone to climb through.
Oh, no.
She was talking about the openings further up.
Correct,
Yeah,
yes.
those openings.
Oh, these ones up here. Yeah, no, it wouldn't, you wouldn't be able to climb through. We would have a guardrail right behind it, right? Like you would have normally on any garage at the edge.
Got it.
So that guardrail would be above the top of that sill, or would that just be in front of the sill? I mean, it may just be that the way the car is rendered in there, it looks like that's lower than it is. Or is that
yeah,
42 inches?
Yeah, it's part of, it would be part of the garage structural design. So we can, I think typically what we do is we put the top of the spandrel at 42 inches, right? So we don't have to have another guardrail, but it also depends a little bit on, the company that's making the spandrel. Some of them have different designs and they come a little bit lower. And if so, then we would have a rail right above it just to hit that 42 inches. So we're not showing one right now, but
Either that will be at 42 or there'll be something.
correct.
Right. Yep.
Thank you.
And I guess just kind of going back to one of the places where I started is looking at that zoomed in. So we're actually looking at, those gray spandrel bands are that's the thickness effectively of your cast concrete spandrel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, the way that are you going to have a contrasting, the way this is drawn or rendered, you've got a different color on the vertical. That was the question I had earlier about the coating versus a stain versus, kind of making that a dark color, but doing it nicely. But that, would the concrete behind the louvers just be an unfinished concrete, or is that something that you would?
Yeah, that's the intent, is actually to have the regular concrete behind, and only where it's being like sort of fully exposed without sort of this idea of any screening, where we would coat the concrete verticals, right? Again, sort of accentuating the base spacing, and then also where we've sort of cut a big opening in there, if we're exposing this is where we're adding that sort of painted metal panel right there. But otherwise, everything else is regular concrete.
And I would definitely urge you to look at like a Kime or a cathedral stone type stain, where you're not going to be looking at a thick coating on those.
Right.
Realistic that is, with it, it'd be nice to see something like that. All right. So, I mean, any other BAR comments? I think we've heard from everybody. So, before I just want to make sure that we're touching on everything. So I know that I'm hopeful that we can see you guys back at our next meeting after you've been to the ZBA. But I guess maybe one last piece, that we have colored sessions here. Is there anything that we should be looking at on this application, or site plan related, that we haven't already discussed?
Kevin, I don't know if you even know, but I
Yeah.
emailed with Joe today.
Okay.
That's
fair.
Sorry,
It's
I
okay.
should have included you. So I had emailed Joe. I was looking at their last memo, which had a bunch of open items, all of which he felt could be conditions, but I wanted to try to narrow down the conditions.
Yeah.
So he kind of gave me an update of things that he feels are completed. And a couple of things that I think we're going to reach out to the applicant, just some minor changes. There was a comment about showing a standpipe connection, a note to be added.
I have some of those notes too.
Yeah. So, if there's any little things that can be done just to reduce the number of conditions, if you want to take a look back at the last Keller Sessions memo. And Rich, we'd be happy to, just touch base with you and let you know what we think is still open. And Kevin, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think that's a good plan, to get together and knock out the small things. I know the SWIP you can knock out, minus the Army Corps engineer permit. There's some simple comments to do there. Just to bring up in terms of the Greenway extension, we will be developing the plans
On behalf of the village.
for the village, on behalf of the village, and the in-stream dissipators and in-stream basin will be designed by SESI and coordinated with our walkway plans. You mentioned the fire connection. Yeah, a lot of this we feel can go to conditional approval.
One question which I think is related to site plan and some of the things we talked about last week is just the finish and the paving on the, I guess, on the north side of the kill. On the site plan, I think that was something that we had left as kind of a question last meeting, if there's any update there.
I think, Rich, it was in your letter, right? So why don't you explain?
Sure, there is, and we added the call outs to our drawings. You know, we heard loud and clear that maintaining the infiltrative capabilities of a paver system was something that was important, as opposed to going to something solid. We took a look at a lot of different paver options, everything from the concrete waffle blocks to custom pouring sidewalk panels to try and create some green space in there. And as a design team, we kept coming back to the same thing. And that is, when you do a paver system similar to the waffle blocks and you put grass in there, and I've done them on several projects, it becomes a nuisance for walking, and it becomes uncomfortable, particularly if you're in anything except a flat shoe. So at the end of the day, you know, you saw Maxwell added some green to the vertical on the parking structure. We'll work with him, you know, as part of, you know, creating vigorous planting, you know, along that frontage. But we want to go with an Eco Prioria type of paver, which is a unilock type of paver. It's designed to have gaps in between the joints that we fill with a pea gravel, so we can maintain a flush, flat walking surface, but we still have that green element. And by green, I don't mean green as in color green. I mean green as in with respect to stormwater initiatives. So we can still allow that stormwater to infiltrate into the ground to the maximum extent practical, similar to what you'd seen on the previous renderings. The paver system, the Eco Prioria, we're looking at the color Beechwood, which is a color similar to what you see in the renderings. And we're going to do a paver pattern layout similar to what we'll do with the concrete on the rest of the site. So it kind of all ties together. It'll make the northern side of the kill feel like a separate space, because again, we do want to try and bring people into the building side where we have the street trees and the furnishings. But we think by using a solid paver, it'll make it more usable, more traversable. We're also being sensitive to respect the fire department, because they did work with us on the bridge orientation and layout. And we want to make sure whatever system we use allows them the freedom to set up wherever they want along that access route, and not have to worry about whether they're on this type of paver element or that.
That's helpful. Thank you for that explanation.
You're welcome. We also did add the crosswalk in at the parking garage structure and yield to pedestrian signs. We touched on that a little bit during Maxwell's presentation, but I want to make sure you understood that we added that and also added the necessary drop curbs and ramps.
Any other site plan or related kind of questions or follow-ups?
I just want to note that I think we're still waiting for the village arborist to approve the landscaping plan.
Okay. And we'll have some follow-up, I guess, from the village then with the arborist between now and our next meeting.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we get something.
Okay, great. Okay, I mean, this was really helpful. You touched. I just want to just follow up on one comment that Rich made, just about, you know, there has been, I know, a lot of kind of collaboration with the fire department on this. And I know there was a walkthrough with village staff and the fire department, and that actually precipitated a lot of the changes in the garage, you know, design and layout that we talked about in the bridge orientation. But that walkthrough, I know, was conducted with staff and the fire department. That was kind of, I think, central to a lot of the site plan layout, especially on the north side of the kill that we've been discussing, and the orientation of the bridge. Not really an action item, just a reminder for the record. Okay, so with that, Is there anything else from the applicant that you feel like we didn't touch on that you wanted to bring up tonight?
No.
Okay. I'll just take the opportunity really quickly, if we can, from the board to reopen the public hearing on this. We'll see if there's anybody here from the public tonight.
Go ahead.
Yeah, please.
Michael Aronson, motion to open the public hearing.
Eric Talbot, I second the motion.
All right, any objections? None heard. The motion passes. Again, we had Michael Aronson motioning and Eric Talbot seconding. Do we have anybody here from the public, either in person or online? If you're online, use the hand raise function, or here, raise your actual hand. And I don't see anybody. So with nobody here to speak to this application, can I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
Isabel Wynn, motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Michael Aronson, second.
All right, again, that's Isabel motioning and Michael seconding. Any objections? No objections. The public hearing is adjourned. And I think with that, we don't have anything else to discuss on this tonight. We have a motion to adjourn.
Before you do that, I just want to remind the board of the different things, because the idea is that at next month's meeting, I think we'd be ready to actually vote on this, assuming they get their variances. And they are scheduled to be on for a special meeting. Zoning board added a meeting next week since they had no quorum last week. So yeah, obviously site plan approval, subdivision approval, conditional use permit for the residential, the affordable housing density bonus. Are we still using the affordable housing density bonus? Okay.
Yes.
Then obviously BAR, tree removal permit. You will be approving the density bonus based on the planned waterfront special permit and a wetland permit. So there's a series of approvals that this board, and I think we've talked about a lot of them. We've talked about them either in the context of SECRA. We spent a lot of time on trees in the context of SECRA. You talked about the density bonus items when you did the letter. We reviewed those in a lot of detail when you made the recommendation to the Board of Trustees. Tree removal we've talked about a lot. You have the wetlands. A lot of that relates to the kill, and we've discussed that at some length. So knowing that those are the things you're going to have to approve, are there any questions that anyone on the board has, or do you feel like we pretty much through the process addressed all of those items?
Linda, I just have a quick question about the certificate of appropriateness. That's just related to the BAR.
Yeah, that's just your BAR approval.
I think there's actually one other item that I'm not sure if you noted the decision on the recreation fee, which is something that we would discuss. I think we discussed that last.
It's sort of already the board of in the agreement because of the public benefits involved in this project and the land that's being retained by the village and the kill extension.
Which was what we were kind of discussed, regardless of any agreement last week. But that was this. I just had that on my list here as well, so I just wanted to put that out there. But yeah, that is understood and makes sense.
And the fact that it's an all affordable project, which is one of the numerous benefits to the village.
Well, and it's providing this project is providing recreational space, correct? Substantive public space for the village. All those other facts notwithstanding. Okay. So all right, just one last opportunity if anybody on the board. Maybe my only just a review of the conditional use that we're looking at on this project. That's
so residential in this district is a conditional use.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
That's just that is that's we've come across that in this district.
Right, you dealt with it previously.
So that's just as a reminder. But that sounds good. All right. Any other questions? We're good. We have a motion then to adjourn this item.
Eric Talbot, I make a motion to adjourn this item.
Second.
Isabel Wynn, a second.
All right. So a motion from Eric and a second from Isabel. Any objections? No objections. Motion passes. This item is adjourned. And hopefully we'll see you guys at our next meeting. All right.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So we will now move forward. Our next item on the agenda, all the attachments on one, is 80 Main Street. So this is, I think, the second time that we're seeing this application. This is this application for a site plan approval. I think a site plan approval only for the building of a retaining wall. So I know the last time this was before us, there were some comments and questions from the board and from staff. And so I think we have the applicant back to begin to address some of those questions. And if we could bring them in, maybe we can get, I'll let you bring them in, and then I'll wait through the pause while that happens.
You raise your hand if you're here on this application. We can let you in. Do we have the applicant here? Anybody here on behalf of the applicant?
Interesting. There's nobody from the, all right, so I'm pretty certain we have somebody from the public here to speak to this application. But yeah, I mean, if the applicant's not here, I mean, I'll certainly, yeah, be a way of reaching out to them. Yeah. give them a moment. It's nice to be able to get some motion and some feedback on this tonight.
While we're waiting, is it appropriate to be refreshed on exactly what's?
I can give a sort of update.
Could we possibly even share the? I mean, they submitted new elevations, and that maybe that would also be helpful for us to look at as a board while that's going up there.
Should we not leave anyone here?
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Do you typically share?
Yep. So there's a couple of things. Start the west elevation. Yeah. So you would ask them for elevation so you could have an idea of what the wall was going to look like.
Right.
So I think they gave you 3 options here.
There's 3 different concrete. These are all concrete finishes that they're proposing. So it's the stamped concrete. I think like a
modeled concrete. I don't know what
yeah. So these are the 3 versions that they sent to us. It'd be helpful to hear from them on exactly, and maybe get some clear documentation and what these finishes would actually look like beyond these orthogonal.
Yes, and there was a couple of other things we needed from them. They gave us the fire department had asked them to modify their parking lot. And they did provide a plan, but we need some more information on that plan, dimensions and things like that. We also need fire department input on whether the plan is acceptable. There was also a question about the Main Street access and what's happening with that. So I think even if they're not here, we can get back to them and tell them what these additional items that we are. The village's consultant, structural engineer did review it. Said it's generally okay. There was a couple of things he wanted them to
clean up stuff,
fix some calculations on. But that would have to be done before building permit. That doesn't really affect the site plan.
I know there was a question from the board last go around regarding the possibility of dividing this into multiple tiers. I don't know if that question was ever answered. I know it's not proposed in what we're looking at right now. That was a question that we wanted to.
Yeah, so there was I think Joe the other day said, the problem is needing a space at the top for the fire access. And if they tier, they have to use up some of that.
Well, you need 30 feet clearance from the wall to the structure, and there's only 28 think existing. So tiered wall would just eliminate more space.
Okay, so that answers that question. But yeah, so right. So one of the site plan that I saw, and maybe it just hadn't been updated on the system, but like was an older site plan. There were some blown up drawings, sketches effectively
of the drive of the
parking, of the parking modifications, but none of that was ever put back on the site plan. So we would certainly need to see that. One of the comments that the applicant provided spoke of closing off the Main Street access, but there was no changes to the site plan to indicate how that would be done. So that's something that we would need to see. Is this a wall? Is it a gate? What's happening there? What's happening with the old drive? Is it just going to be crumbled asphalt after 20 years, or is it going to be removed? Like what's the actual?
So there was discussion about making it a pedestrian access. So what are
right.
they doing to do that?
Right, exactly. So that needs to be reflected on a site plan and developed and put out there. So I mean, I think those are the main comments.
It seems maybe because this seems a while back, but I thought, I mean, we wanted to see that wall within the context of adjacent properties and what it would really look like if you were across the street, for example, where I don't think what they provided, I mean, it shows the different options in terms of the texture or the material of the wall, but not really what it looks like in terms of it. I don't know if that's a rendering that we need. But that would be helpful to see, and how it looks from, if you're coming down Main Street, how it looks below. That would be helpful.
I agree. I think that asking for a rendering of this from a couple of different perspectives, up the hill, down the hill, would help us understand what it is that this will be. I'm mindful that we have someone here from the public who I believe is here to speak on this application. So while we're sitting here, can I have a motion to open the public hearing on this application?
Eric Talbot, I make the motion to reopen the public hearing.
Michael Aronson, second.
All right, so that was Eric Talbot motioning and Eric motioning and Michael seconding. I believe we have someone from the public here to speak to this application. So if you just, when you begin speaking, just state your name and your place of residence, and then I don't know if the microphone's working.
That was one big moment. Daniel Ockheimer from Riverdale, New York, the Bronx. My connection to this application is that the village might be interested to know that the lender who has a loan on this property has a foreclosure sale, I believe, scheduled for December 7th. And there's some sort of movement either in terms of our group stepping in to purchase the note and conduct the foreclosure sale ourselves, or to purchase the property at the foreclosure sale. So this all sort of happened a little suddenly from our perspective, and we're just trying to get caught up here in terms of, I guess, primarily the fiscal stability, so to speak, of the structure. So as far as I understand, there's the retaining wall which collapsed about 4 years ago, and there's been developers seems like a Job-like character, sort of like one thing after the next, so there's that element, and that application has been submitted. So that part, I think, to a certain extent, I understand sort of what the issues are. Well, not what the issues are, but sort of what the immediate sort of issue is. I'm not clear. What's the site plan issue that is being discussed? That's the part that I'm just looking at.
It's just an amendment of the parking layout.
That's
just a modification of parking.
Okay.
That really was requested by the fire department.
Okay. And then in terms of structural integrity of the building, I reviewed the lender provided us with some documentation, some letters from WSP. Maybe there's Booker Engineering was there as well. In terms of the structural integrity of the building itself. I'm not sure how much you guys are at liberty to discuss that issue.
This board hasn't really been involved with that issue. Probably speak to the building department.
Okay. And then the last question is that from, I guess there's two parts of it. The first part is that from what was what documentation that we were given is that 4 units were designated as affordable as part of the plan. So that I have a two-part question. The first is that it's 25 units, and guidelines that I read, or somebody told me, is that 10% of the units for a project like this would have to be designated as affordable. So using that calculation, it would be either 3, 2 or 3, but let's say rounding up, it would be 3, not 4. So is there a reason that there's an extra affordable unit in there? Is it they give more density, or that's question number one?
Have to go back to the original.
Yeah, there should be an original, planning application and approvals and resolutions. I can say personally that predates my tenure on this board.
Mm-hmm. And then the units, those 4 units are specifically designated for people, residents, making 80% of AMI. The rental cap, does that correspond to that? So it can only be 30% of whatever the 80% AMI is. Is that generally the way it
this
works?
board doesn't get involved in the details on qualifying and what qualifying requirements are.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Stuart Kahn provided you with sort of how to get that information.
Right. And then so the last question is that the plan as it stands right now is it's a 55 and older. It's the units are designated for people for residents that are 55 and older. Is that sort of, for lack of a better term, set in stone, or is that sort of something as a new application, a new site plan, or the wall is sort of constructed? Is that something that could be amended or not?
I'd have to look back at the original approval and what kind of provisions were made.
Yeah, I don't have the answer to that.
Okay. Okay.
When the planning board really is just involved sort of at the site plan stage. So a lot of those are things that are beyond this board's.
Right, understood.
And certainly before what's before us right now. This is not something. This project is in front of us as a site plan approval right now because of this wall.
That said, I think the village would be happy to have a real owner.
Right.
This property.
Right. No, we're excited about the project. Just sort of want to make sure we're not walking into a money pit. So,
Understood.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll just ask briefly if there's anybody from the public here to speak to this application online. You can use the hand raise function on Zoom. And I don't see any hands going up. So can I have a motion from the board to adjourn the public hearing?
Michael Aronson, motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Second.
Isabel Wynn, I second.
All right, so that's Michael motioning and Isabel seconding. And any objections? No objections. The motion carries. The hearing is adjourned. I'm assuming nobody from the applicant has shown up. So at this point, we have a motion to adjourn this item for tonight.
Eric Talbot, I make a motion to adjourn this item for tonight.
I'm wondering if they didn't show because the bank has got sold property.
That's very possible. Can we have a second on the adjournment?
Isabel Wynn, I second that motion.
All right, so that's Eric motioning and Isabel seconding. Any objections? No objections. That motion is adjourned. We've made it through our agenda.
Can I just ask something?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Who was supposed to be here?
Well, Matthew Cardone is the architect.
So this has been in foreclosure though, right? So was there was the
It's bank owned right now.
bank attorney for the last two. I see. So okay, I was just trying to understand.
It was listed on the referral application. There was the receiver.
Right, it was in receivership.
Right. All right, so we'll see where that goes. I think that
it's been a fixture of my sort of curiosity for a while. What's going on in this building?
I think it's more than 4 years too, but I didn't.
I don't know. I don't know that it's been much more than that.
In terms of the retaining wall?
Yeah.
No, I remember coming in here not that long ago when my neighbor had something in here and someone was in here complaining about that wall from the public.
After it came down or
after
before
it was built? After it was built, I think.
Oh, before it collapsed. I thought it.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. Anyway, that was a fun night.
Glad nobody was hurt.
Nobody was hurt. It was incredible. Something like that happened on the West Side Highway about 15 years
remember
ago.
that.
I recall that day.
I remember that.
Showed us pictures of how they restored that.
It was
wall.
actually, it was 2004.
That makes sense. I had driven past it. It was like wherever my toll hit, like my Easy Pass hit, and the wall came down. It was between. I went right to the pool, And my wife couldn't reach me for like 2 hours.
But she was
And
afraid.
She was like, she was convinced I've gone. All right.
Always think the worst.
Always,
That's
always.
That's the best way.
Exactly.
That was
I do
unbelievable.
that
And that
too.
was a big wall.
Huge wall. That took a long time. So maybe not this long.
And you can still see it and, you know, you
Yeah.
can still see
Yeah,
the
you can see where they
difference.
stamped. It's a stamp. That was a stamped concrete wall that they put up there. If you want to see one.
I know someone who owned that building, owned that wall.
Oh, wow.
The co-op.
It was a co-op.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
up
And
above.
they had
Yeah.
a huge assessment to
Oh, I
rebuild
bet.
that thing.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. Wow. Yeah.
So retaining
Was it
walls are
Riverside
scary.
and
Well,
what's the
they
cross
have
street?
nice river views.
They do, but I think they were not a high income co-op.
Depending on how many units there are in those assessments.
And not
you get a
all
lot
the
per
units have
capita.
nice river views.
All right, can we have a motion to adjourn this meeting for tonight?
Michael Aronson, motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Isabel went, I second that motion.
Michael motioning, Isabel seconding, and any objections? No objections, motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys very much. This is one of our easier ones.
This is the spring, earlier this spring, like in the spring.
Yeah.
Or winter, last winter.
Yeah.
Pretty
You
good.
were having
We had a couple like 11 o'clock nights.
Yeah.
And that was on Zoom, so you could like just go to bed afterwards.
Even when I first started doing your meetings, there were some long ones, and I started in April.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, that was tough. And then hopefully, you know, the next month we'll have Valerie involved, so.
Yes, I'm glad this was your meeting with her.
Yeah, no, exactly.
It's been a real slowdown this year. I think this is like a